But we are also seeing innovation amongst the youth in terms of tech solutions. Like we are seeing tech solutions in how to trade in grain, tech solutions in how to manage land. For example, in the rural areas, people have got small pieces of land. Some youth have come up with an application that can actually combine the different pieces of land, create a rental mechanism, attract capital, and use digital finance. All those are new innovations.
But I think aid has changed. And I think the fact that we are employing over $500 million of US taxpayer money, US government resources, and we are deploying that in very lean, cost-effective ways. We aren't looking at creating dependencies in Africa. We're looking at unleashing the potential of African business.
Welcome to the boardroom. My name is Ntlalo, your host. We are in Sentin at the Hilton Hotel for the Business Analytics Summit. Hear more from the delegates here today. Ladies and gentlemen, I am with Golden Mahove, Africa Trade and Investment Senior Technical Director. Good to have you here, sir.
Thank you, Ntlalo.
Tell me more about your work in this office.
Okay, so the focus of my portfolio is how to identify opportunities for intra-Africa trade and trade with the US, particularly to utilize the African Growth and Opportunity Act and the Generalized System of Preference, which are preferential trade programs that benefit African countries in ways that other regions don't benefit their own private sector. Then secondly is to look at investment opportunities to move capital across the continent, but more importantly to bring in capital from the US into Africa to grow the businesses.
Yes, there tends to be some comments and some views that more capital is leaving Africa than is coming in. Is this statement true?
That may be so in certain sectors, but when we look at the numbers, for example, the UNCTAD report would show us the investment flows over the years. We can see that countries or economies such as South Africa, Kenya, Nigeria, Ghana, Angola are attracting a lot more capital into them. If you look at the number of tech startups that are on the continent, it's on the rise, which shows that there's actually more investment coming onto the continent. The other interesting aspect about investment, one could argue that, well, it's only the big economies that are getting the investment. What about the smaller economies? So we have countries such as South Africa, Nigeria, being frontier economies where investors come through South Africa but then want to use it as a launchpad to the rest of the continent. So in that manner, the work that we do in terms of promoting intra-Africa investment enables smaller economies to benefit from the larger economies. While the FDI, or foreign direct investment, is coming into the bigger ones, it also then spills over to the smaller economies. So in a nutshell, we can say we are still getting more investment on the continent, not just in mining, but in new sectors that have previously not been supported as they are now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Also, tell me, as an investor coming in, is the ecosystem improving in Africa? Or, we still see corruption, we still see conflicts in Africa. Are we moving forward?
The narrative that we've often seen, I think, portrayed of Africa is starving children, drought, conflict. Yes, those elements are there, but when you compare Africa 20 years ago and where Africa is today, you can certainly see that those are actually in the minority. We've seen a lot more economies that are stable, that have got good credit ratings, that are attracting the big multinationals and also are enabling their own local companies to thrive. And the data indicates that we have a number of startups in the right sectors across most economies. Yes, there are still some economies that need to catch up in terms of their governance and so forth. And this is where the African Continental Free Trade Agreement comes in, and the support that we are providing under the Africa Trade and Investment Program complements those efforts at regional economic community level and at the continental level.
Yes. The Africa debt, is it a new age colonization 2.0? Because there's been a lot of borrowing, especially this time of COVID and so on. Is it justifiable, this debt?
Well, if I'm a parent. As a parent, if my children are starving, I have to make a plan. Under COVID, conditions were very difficult. Trade conditions were difficult as there was no movement. Investment was difficult. And governments had to take measures to address the impact of COVID. And borrowing was the most logical means to do that. Because without human capital, there is no development that's going to happen. So by borrowing, yes, a number of countries reduced the fiscal space that they have in terms of doing more development work. But now that we've come out of all those hard lockdowns and we have learned to manage COVID, the human capital that we have can now drive us forward. And this is a phase that the economies will get out of. The countries are now opening up, more trade is happening, more investment is happening. They will recover from this episode and regain the positions that they had in terms of the fiscal space that they need to make the necessary investment. And this is where an initiative such as the Africa Trade and Investment Program comes handy. Because what are we doing? We are going into the continent and enabling more trade. More trade means more money for the countries, more taxes, more jobs, more fiscal space for the economies, more infrastructure development, and more human capital development, ultimately.
Yes. I think what was worse than COVID was the response to COVID. But tell me, as Africa Trade and Investment Director, what are you excited about now in your office? What are some of the projects that you are excited about?
See, when I look at the types of business opportunities that are on the continent,
Yes.
that have not been tapped before, that the African businesses have come alive to, I get excited about a business from South Africa. To give you an example, we have a business in Bryanston that is connecting businesses across the 54 countries in Africa, and also linking them to the US through a trade platform. The utilization of technology to promote intra-Africa trade and trade with the US is exciting. The second aspect is, I think, African business is realizing that Africa is not just a backwater continent. There are opportunities across the different regions, north, west, east, and south, and willing to do business together. That excites me. The second aspect that excites me is the recognition by the US government that we could do more business by treating Africa as a partner for engaging meaningfully in terms of doing business from a trade and investment perspective actually excites me. When I look at the Africa Leaders Summit that's coming up in December, the focus is on how do we do business together, how do we grow together. That's a new narrative that has not been there before. And that's exciting to me at a political economy level, but also at a business level.
Yes. Your office, how have you embraced technology to influence the ecosystem and also to engage the youth? Because Africa has a huge population of young people who are ready to be taught, who are willing to learn, who are willing to get into entrepreneurship.
So, first off, in terms of our model as an initiative, we are not in every country physically, but we operate across all the 4 regions, north, west, east, south. That means that we have to embrace technology ourselves in terms of how we operate, how we engage with governments, how we engage with the private sector. So that's the first element. The second element is that in our partnerships with the private sector, we challenge the private sector to come forward with the ideas. We don't say, you do this. We say to them, what do you want? What do you care about? And how can we partner with you to help you to realize that? So we are seeing a number of companies that are creating programs to train youth so that they've got skilled workforce that can grow with the companies as they engage in their intra-Africa trade and trade with the US. To give some examples, we see the growth of the textile sector, and that requires a lot of youth that are well trained, that can grow and manage sophisticated machines as opposed to just being tailors. They are growing into more specialized positions. But we are also seeing innovation amongst the youth in terms of tech solutions. Like we are seeing tech solutions in how to trade in grain, tech solutions in how to manage land. For example, in the rural areas, people have got small pieces of land. Some youth have come up with an application that can actually combine the different pieces of land, create a rental mechanism, attract capital, and use digital finance. All those are new innovations where the tech startups I was talking about earlier are now coming to bear in terms of offering solutions to African problems.
Mr. Golden Mahove, Senior Technical Director, Africa Trade and Investment. Good to have you, sir.
Same here.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are sitting with Kristi Ragan, Chief of Party Africa Trade and Investment, USAID. Kristi, tell me more about your work that you do in Africa.
We are pioneering a new approach for the U.S. government in Africa, which has in the past been largely country by country, and we are now pushing out and implementing a continental approach to trade and investment, not just taking only East Africa or only Southern Africa or only West or North. And North Africa is for the first time included in the continental approach to Africa trade and investment.
Awesome. What are some of the challenges or maybe even exciting prospects and situations that that came across your desk in this project?
Well, nothing comes across my desk because I don't have a desk. I am roaming constantly across the continent.
Yes.
But I will say one of the significant challenges that I wholeheartedly welcome is that the United States and the U.S. government is laser focused on Africa and on what Africa wants for Africa. And I think Africa has largely been one of many continents that the U.S. government looks to, but it has risen in its profile and its importance. And you can see that because President Biden is going to be convening every African head of state in Washington, D.C. in December to talk about how the U.S. government can engage more closely and more with more impact on what Africa wants for Africa. So that is an exciting new challenge, particularly increasing trade between the U.S. and the African continent.
Interesting. One, what does Africa want for Africa, and what does this U.S. presidency and leadership led by President Biden, what is their vision for Africa?
Well, I think Africa wants for Africa economic growth, prosperity, and that, of course, starts with more jobs on the continent, employment opportunities for the youth, education, better healthcare, all the things that the governments talk about, but they are also coming to the U.S. and saying, we have businesses on this continent that are ready to bring its products and services to the United States, and that is very exciting. And this goes way beyond just a few minerals or oil or, kind of formerly what the U.S. got from Africa. Looking at the continent as a real viable continent and trading partner. Yep.
USAID has been around or dealing with Africa for quite some time now. What are some of the success stories that come to your mind, and maybe some of the low points?
Low points. Well, I think low points is that foreign aid and development assistance has been too slow to really capitalize on the private sector opportunities in Africa. And governments and offshoots of governments, projects we have bureaucratic requirements. And I think one of the things that USAID did a couple of years ago is say, our programs will be led by the private sector. So it offers a potential for success. I think we're still trying to help, we're one actor trying to help USAID realize the successes from engaging the private sector. That has not always been the case. We started with governments, we added civil society, but we have an important piece by really focusing on the private sector.
Yes. Just to round up, that word aid, is that word a friend of Africa and enemy of Africa, the word aid? Because sometimes it drives governments to rather incompetent in a way and relying on aid.
I think aid has gotten, of course, a bad rap, and in some cases deservedly so, but I think aid has changed. And I think the fact that we are employing over $500 million of U.S. taxpayer money, U.S. government resources, and we are deploying that in very lean, cost-effective ways. We aren't looking at creating dependencies in Africa. We're looking at unleashing the potential of African business and African women and Africa youth. So absolutely there's a legacy of not impactful use of foreign aid and slow and dependency creating. I think I'd like to see the Africa Trade and Investment Initiative of USAID as really, really pushing the envelope on not dependency, but interconnectedness and engagement.
Yes. To round off, please just quickly speak to the stakeholders and also relay that vision of what USAID is doing right now and what your office, trade and investment is doing right now.
I would say the most important stakeholder to really emphasize and that we take very, very serious is the actors are local. We're not importing actors from other parts of the world, particularly from the US. The work that is being done on trade and investment in this program, hugely focused on the private sector, but local private sector. The South Africa businesses, Southern Africa, East, West, the primary actors are on the continent. And that is, I think that's a change, a healthy change, perhaps a long overdue change, but a change that Africa is ready to deliver on.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, Kristi Ragan, USAID Chief of Party, Africa Trade and Investment. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Good to have you.
Yeah.
Awesome. My name is Tlalo. I'm the host of the Boardroom. I'm with Ino, founder of the Business Analysis School. Ino, please introduce yourself and tell us more about what you do.
Of course, thanks for having me. Hi, my name is Eno Eka. I am the founder of the Business Analysis School. I was born in Nigeria, but I live in Canada right now. I started my career as an accountant. However, I fell in love with business analysis, and I have a growing passion about providing business solutions, but more importantly, helping people see the amazing career of business analysis. And that's why I founded the Business Analysis School. So I'm happy to speak to you about business analysis today.
Yes. Tell me, how do you develop a successful enterprise?
I have to say, it has to be my business analysis career. Starting my business, I think it came from a need, and the need was from the potential customers who are currently students and small businesses. When I moved to Canada, I was able to find success really fast in my career, but I already had a business analysis career from Nigeria. So it was really easy for me to find success in starting a consulting company in 9 months, in landing multiple jobs in about 6 months. However, a lot of people around me struggled with their careers. So I found myself being that trusted advisor to small and medium businesses and to other immigrants around me. And when they clamored for some sort of formal way of learning, formal way of providing my services to them, that's how we started the school. And being able to implement everything I know as a business analyst, starting from the need, and bringing about a change in the way immigrants see themselves, and the way professionals think about their careers, and providing that solution with my business is how I've been able to run it. And of course, we have had many iterations, reforming how we do things, changing things. And I say, we're still changing, we're evolving, and that's the beauty of business analysis.
What is it about, Nigerians, I understand they have that business spirit, like maybe from your background.
Yeah.
Where does that inspiration come from?
Ooh. The typical Nigerian is very entrepreneurial. We have the hustle spirit, but we're very learned as well. We like to go to school. Back home, if you don't have a bachelor's or a master's, what are you doing? So we have that drive to win and to succeed. I think it stems from the competition, typically in that African home where you have to get first in class. You come out of school, get a fantastic job, and then you now become a provider, right? So because of that competition and that drive that you see around you, you have no choice than to learn a few things. And with a lot of our parents too, they're entrepreneurial as well. So we learn a few things because you might help them with balancing your books, setting up the shop, things like that. So you kind of just grows on you. But I dare say that Nigerians are so entrepreneurial. We're amazing people. We love to be independent. We don't want to depend on anybody. So we will do whatever we can to succeed.
Yeah. I understand you'll be giving your presentation tomorrow. What are some of the key focus areas?
Of course, yes. So I am opening the conference tomorrow as the opening keynote. I'm speaking about building your business analysis thought leadership. And this presentation is really for the people who are going to be in the room tomorrow. It's helping them see that they are already thought leaders, that the business analysis skills that we already have make us thought leaders in the world. And how can they leverage the skills that they have, and how can they also create the strategies to be seen globally as trusted advisors to companies, to the government, wherever we find ourselves. So it's going to be a fantastic session, and I look forward to that.
Yes, I'm focusing more on the African space. I mean, would you advise investors coming in to invest in Africa? Do you believe in this continent? I understand in Canada, but
Yeah.
this continent of Africa, what do you think for investors coming in?
Let me surprise you. I am invested in Africa,
Yes.
in Nigeria. I must say this, that anyone who hasn't invested in Africa is losing a whole lot. Business Analysis School is global, but our second highest pool of students come from Nigeria, followed by Cameroon and Ghana, and then South Africa. Right, we have the population. Our people want to read, they want to learn, they want to grow. They're open to new things. That's the thing with Africans, is that we don't shy away from opportunities. And we have the people, we have the manpower, we have the knowledge, right? We have the strength and the ability. So I dare say that any company who hasn't invested in Africa is missing out a whole lot. I definitely urge all investors to come to Africa. I'm in South Africa right now. And trust me, there's so many opportunities out here for you. With the Business Analysis School, we're building our presence digitally, but of course, with time, we would have physical offices in Africa, and that's how we should be. Yeah.
Some of the issues we're dealing with in South Africa in terms of, energy, shifting from coal to carbonization and renewable energy.
Yeah.
Is it sustainable for Africa, the way you see it?
Well, with Africa, we still have a long way to go with renewable energy, but what I see recently is a lot of companies who are starting to make use of, single-use plastics to generate energy. And I think because of the high plastic usage here in Africa, that could be an easy way for us to generate energy. And I believe that if the government can put out funding towards these small businesses, give them funding for their R&D, I'm very sure that we're going to be able to move from, the coal and even the dependence on petroleum as well to, other renewable energy like, using plastic, solar, and the rest of them. So definitely there is opportunities with renewable energy here in Africa.
Yes, also I'd like to just ask about those entrepreneurs. You were talking about how people would come to you for business advice and so on. Please speak on that to the young entrepreneurs starting out. There are many of them in South Africa that are starting out in business. Please speak to that, the advice and the encouragement and the key focus for them getting into business, how to try in that space, because from statistics we know that many of the startups they fail in their first year. So what are some of the key areas that they can focus on as young people getting into business?
For sure. I'll definitely say this as a young person in business. There is usually those fears of failure, but that's the reason why you're starting. I would say leverage communities. Communities are how I was able to build my business. So WhatsApp, Facebook, LinkedIn. You don't have to have a fancy website or anything like that. Honestly, with your phone and the internet, you can start a sustainable business. Learn from other people. So find areas where you can get coaching or support if needed. And then also, seek out opportunities for funding, grants within your field, and maybe any microloans if possible. But definitely, find the need within your community, leverage your communities. Don't be shy to speak about your business. Don't be shy to talk about what you do. Create a social media page, even if it's just a Facebook page or an Instagram page, and start, putting out things about your business. And that way you can leverage the online space. You don't need a physical store or anything right now to actually have a business. So, leveraging the internet, leveraging social media, these are ways that we've been able to build our businesses as well. So that young person out there, this is my advice to you. Start where you are, use what you have, leverage your communities, and don't be scared to fail. Thank you.
The importance of education.
For sure. Education. Education is the key to success. I tell people anywhere that without education, I don't think I would be where I am. I think one of the culture shocks I got when I moved to Canada was people saying, "Oh, you speak English. You speak very well. Who taught you English?" And I say, I think I'm more read than you are. Back home, we're colonized by the British, so we speak English. That's our lingua franca. We go to school, we're very well educated. And these are the things that make you stand out. I found that, when I share how much of education that I have, people kind of respect me when they hear me speak. And that is why I encourage everyone, especially my, fellow youth back home, go to school, leverage education. No learning is a waste, right? It might be informal learning, and that's fine as well. That's still education, right? Travel, that's still education, right? Those are the ways that you can expand your knowledge, grow, and I dare say this, that, as long as you're educated, you can succeed anywhere in the world.
You're running the business analysis school. What are some of the exciting projects that you're currently enrolling in?
We have lots of exciting projects. So right now we are developing an application. We have it in the beta phase right now. So we have some users testing that app, and it's exciting to see where that's going. Also within our business, we deployed bots. So we're using robotic process automation right now, RPA, within our business, and it's exciting to see how those bots are amazing. And I know when we talk about robotics, people feel like, oh, that's going to take away people's jobs. But on the contrary, right? Processes are faster, things are automated. And I'm excited about that, to see how that would, even help us serve our students better. And of course, once we officially launch our app as well.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
To have you.
Sure,
Yes.
thank you.
That was awesome. The Business Analytics Summit is all about building a healthy workplace, developing a successful enterprise. It's the boardroom. My name is Lalo.